Lake Como. It is absolutely, well, grey. But then again, at least it's not raining. We are destination Lecco today after 242 kilometres in total. A beautiful setting. Let's just hope we can see most of it. Then again, we're going to be focusing in on the riders, and the very best in the world, it seems, have just carried over the World Championships. They're determined to deliver on the last chance, really, within Europe. On this, the penultimate round of the UCI World Tour. Everybody off to Beijing fairly shortly, but right now it's about Italy and that last chance to do something on European soil. Lecco then is our destination today, and those who disappointed in the World Championships have, well, perhaps got another bite at the cherry today. The clouds just starting to break up. We do have some brightness along the way. Thank heaven for that. Well, this is the finish line in Lecco at the end of what is going to be a very testy day. It's built for the climbers, as was the World Championship. So there's a lot of talent who've come here that were kind of washed away, I think you might say, at the Worlds. It is cloudy. Temperatures around about 13 Celsius. It actually feels an awful lot warmer than that. But humidity 95%, and so you know that rain is ever present and it could wash over us at any moment. Some nasty descents to be dealt with. That's really the main focus today, as it was within the World Championship. So many crashes there, of course. It may well be a similar story today if the heavens opens. So keep your fingers crossed. The riders have been in the saddle now for over 3.5 hours. It is a long one today, 242 kilometres in total, and this is your route. A looping one, as you can see, all the way to the shores of Lake Como and Lecco itself. So let's check out exactly what sort of profile they're dealing with. You've seen the map, but what about the mountains that they're having to contend with today? All the riders were very tight together for the first 30 kilometres or so. Went over the Valcava and the Colla Brianza. Right now, they have the biggest test of the day, and we'll join them live in a few moments. The Colmo di Sormano, with ramps of around 25 or 27% in places. The descent down into Nesso will be frightening. As you can see, it was a little brighter in Bergamo this morning, and the lions that traditionally protect this city, well, had some battling to be done, I think. It was, however, to be a mournful start, as you'll see in a few moments' time, after the riders signed on in the early part of the morning. Got to tell you as well that a number did not start, including Chris Froome, who's got back trouble, so a big name who has gone. And despite those signing on, the likes of Peter Sagan, Kwiatkowski, Andy Schleck, Juan Antonio Fletcher have also found it just too much. Will there be an Italian winner this time by? Well, Daniele Ratto, one of those who signed on for Cannondale, they, in the absence of Sagan, now will be hopeful. And maybe your last look, you just saw of Euskaltel, I think it was Igor Martinez just signing on for them. Maybe a last look at that bright orange jersey, which now looks doomed at the end of the season, of course. Here is our new world champion. He says, I am so proud to be wearing these the rainbow jersey for the first time, and Rui Costa saying that this race will live long in my memory simply because it's the first I'll be wearing these hoops. This is a man who was beaten at the line, of course. Joaquim Rodriguez, Perito, winner here on Il Lombardia last year, and carrying a lot of regret, he says, but also just wants to put the World Championships behind him. I just want to get back on my bike. He says he, of course, it was a great victory last year here for him, and so Mr. Eternal Second says he just wants to get on the bike and do the job again. Of course, he knows the course. Minute silence, impeccably adhered to this morning, remembering those who perished in Lampedusa and the boating accident. And so, yes, a pall hanging over the whole of Italy, I've got to tell you. A national day of mourning and contemplation being called by the Pope, and well observed it is. So, rolling out then for the last big test, a real climbers test as well. Bergamo was, they rolled through the neutralised section, no not too much trouble throughout it. We told you that a number of riders decided not to take the start, including Chris Froome, I've got to tell you, and Sky not overly full of, I've got to say, personnel. They only have 6 riders left. Svitsu also, the Belarusian, decided not to take part. This is our first look at them as well. There's some relay problems today, incidentally, in terms of data as to those who are up the road. But this looks like quality, and Cannondale most certainly are here. Who's also here? Daniel Lloyd.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm very much looking forward to this race, and yeah, the first live pictures that we've seen, as you rightly said, we had a breakaway of 6 go up the road this morning, which quickly got whittled down to the 4 that stayed away for quite some time, but they have been absorbed by a counter-attack, as you can see on your screens now. There are the list of names. Vicioso of Katusha. Interesting to see that they've put a man up the road. Van Avermaet, very strong rider from BMC. Rosa from Androni. Stef Clement, the riders from the Belkin, Dutch rider in there as well. It's kind of the second-tier riders here. We've got a lot of very big names, very strong riders. None of the top guys, of course, like Perito Rodriguez, like Valverde, like the world champion Rui Costa. But some of those teams are going to have to be careful about this breakaway, that it doesn't go too far up the road. But I can tell you that these riders will be pleased to have a little bit of an advantage before they get to the Somano climb, because, as you rightly said, absolutely brutal on the higher slopes that they're reaching up to 27% maximum gradient in the last 2 Ks to the top, and the descent equally as brutal as we saw last year. Plenty of crashes, not quite as hard the rain this year as it was last year, but it's still wet on the road, so it's going to be equally as dangerous down that hill.
Nasty skittering, and as they come down into Nesto, which is a very, very testy and technical descent, it's going to be worrying. Just coming into Canso, as you can see, this is a sort of a sub-ramp before the climb really begins proper. We have a number of kilometres in advance of our main test as we go through Maglio. And then as they rise up to the top of Sormano, that is where it's going to get very testing. But over the top, that technical descent down to Nesto is where I have some fears, Dan.
Yeah, I think it's, we saw last year, fresh world champion Philippe Gilbert crashing amongst a few others on that descent, and it really did whittle down the group almost as much as the climb. And Perito Rodriguez, of course, coming to become the victor at the end of it and taking the world tour overall in terms of rankings as well. But yeah, this is an interesting move, this group of, as you said, around about 21 riders. 4 of the original breakaways still there. I'm looking forward to seeing who's riding on the front of the peloton behind. Damiano Cunego, a 3-time winner of this race from Lampre, is in that group, but he hasn't shown the form over recent months or even the last year or so that he has when he won that race in the past. And he's got a teammate, Diego Ulissi, who has shown some great form, winning Milano-Tirreno just a few days ago on an uphill sprint against some very good quality riders. But they have lost a rider just now, Michele Scarponi, one of the winners of the Giro d'Italia just a couple of years ago. He has abandoned the race along with some fairly high-profile riders. Peter Sagan earlier on today from Cannondale, he was one of the early abandoners, which was a little bit of a surprise, given that he was one of the favourites today, if he could have got over the climbs. Andy Schleck as well, not quite so much of a surprise, but of course still one of the big names that's pulled out. And Juan Antonio Flecha from Vaconsoleil, who apparently said to journalists this morning that this could be his last ever race. Maybe he hasn't got a contract for next year.
I don't think he has, but after Chris Horner showed that you can turn the clock back good and proper, he's been quite animated of late, has Juan Antonio Flecha. I think he was in most of the breaks on the Vuelta, just seemed to be up there, obviously bidding for a contract which hasn't really dawned, I'm afraid. So Damiano Cunego is in the break. Oh, and we have a tumble, and it won't be the last today. At least it's on a flattish section, but then again, Dan, it doesn't matter when it comes, or indeed what pace you're at, injuries can follow. Let's hope they're all safe.
Yeah, I think everyone's starting to battle now for position into that important climb that they've got just around the corner now. I did see one of the Orica riders, Peter Vini, the Dutch guy, was one of the riders held up. It looks like Henao, is that Sergio Henao, the Colombian rider from Sky, that seems to be still waiting there to get his bike up and running again. So, yeah, a few of the bigger names here. And of course, Escatel in their last World Tour one-day race ever. Got a couple of riders there as well.
Here we are. You just look beyond and past the Europe car rider, and there it is. Just a touch of wheels on a pinch point. And unguarded curbs as well, as you can see. Now, if you hit a curb on an angle, it just twists the front wheel, and a momentary movement within the pack when they're so tightly packed such as that, can bring you down, as you can see, and that's exactly what's happened, I'm afraid. Looking like he got away with that, one of the Orica Green Edge boys. Just trying to get a clock on who it was. I think it was Peter Vealing, actually. Picked himself back up, and away he went. Of those in the break, while we just dwell to see if there's any serious injuries, it looks like they're all just about okay. Oh, no. Vincenzo. Well, he's hobbling, he's not happy, and he's gone white of pallor, and that is not good.
No, that doesn't look too good. His teammate Paolo Tirolongo also then confirmation that Nibali is one of the riders who's come down the crash. He was actually my favourite today. The bookie's favourite, I think, is Joaquim Rodriguez, but I think Nibali last week showing at the World Championships just how strong he was. Of course, he came away very disappointed, but let's not forget he also had a crash in that race, which meant he had to chase on and use a fair bit of energy before then attacking. There's our first view of the new world champion, Rui Costa, currently riding for the Movistar team, the first ever Portuguese world champion who will be riding for the Lampre team next year.
Well, he was signalling to a teammate, but it looked like he was he got the whip hand out, and Nibali is in no hurry to get back on board, and his teammate likewise.
No, it looks very much like race over to me for Vincenzo Nibali. A very important part of the race. We still have, as you can see, 90.7 kilometres to go to the finish, but to be this far behind coming up to the climb of the Sormano, well, it's going to be, helmets off. I think that's day done for the Italian champion.
Well, they're just focusing in on his, to the side of his knee. Let's just hope he hasn't got any ligament damage. Ligaments, nasty thing to have stretched even. They don't have to break. It can be equally as troubling. Let's just not assume anything, but hope that Vincenzo Nibali is back to his best fairly shortly, but he's not going to be on the bike today, I'm afraid. And that looks like the end, potentially, of his season. So, there we are. Vincenzo, Giro d'Italia winner, and many people's favourite to do a double this year with the Vuelta Tour of Spain into the ambulance, I'm afraid. So there we are. Of the men in the breakaway, Jan Bakelant's reasonably handy for Radio Shack Leopard. And I guess with this happening as well within the pack, it's kind of a warning that today, more than anything, you just have to take care.
Yeah, it's one of those things in the wet where, of course, you would like to be a little bit more careful, but everyone feels like there's so much resting on it. There's, this year especially, I think, a lot of desperate riders in the peloton. We mentioned Juan Antonio Flecha without a contract next year, but with Esquetel folding, Vacon Soleil also folding, and a number of the pro-continental teams also disbanding at the end of the year, it means that there's a lot of people still without a contract. And so, of course, any visual exposure that they can get at a big race like Lombardia, and also, particularly a result at the end of it, would mean a hell of a lot to those guys. And so a few desperate people, and when you get desperate people in bike races on wet roads, it always causes a number of crashes.
Well, they've paced up, and I'm kind of not surprised. I don't know whether word is sort of filtering through to everybody. Well, of course it is. But whether the main pack has eased off ever so slightly. We have Longo Borghini in the break. Greg Van Avermaet we've mentioned. In fact, we haven't mentioned Greg Van Avermaet. Gavazzi, there he is. Rossa Clement, well. Van Avermaet's must be licking his lips that today may well open up something. Damiano Cunego, he's not going to turn the clock that far back, I'm afraid. Insausti's here as well. Priedler, Benedetti, mentioned Meyer. Jan Bakelant's, that's a good one for Radio Shack. 6.9 kilometres to go, a little less than that. Looking at the front of the race right now, they're still working hard. And Jan Bakelants is determined not to just give up the ghost quite yet, but he's got his work cut out, I've got to tell you. The pack are approaching. You're going to see some of the major names come to the fore. Now, just for you, let's just remind you that Peter Sagan is already out. Andy Schleck has decided that today isn't going to be for him. Chris Froome, with back issues, decided before the race even began that he wasn't going to take part. And I'm afraid that Vincenzo Nibali as well. This has been a huge attrition rate, and we're not even at the full meat of the day.
No, certainly are. This is probably the hardest climb of the day, but as you can see on your screens, it comes a fair way from the finish. In fact, the top of this climb is at 82 k's to go. So how much of an effect it has overall in the race very much depends on how the teams and riders take this race on after they go down the descent before they hit the final 2 climbs of the day. But certainly at the moment, it looks to have been particularly hard, this race, earlier on, and Saxo Bank setting quite a high pace up this climb. Already seeing a number of riders being dropped, and these probably a couple of guys as well. That's just Uran. He's one of the favourites for today. That looks to me like it's him, the Sky Rider there, left-hand side. We saw his teammate and compatriot Enau on the floor with Nibali a little bit early. He did get back up, but that's a surprise to see Uran there. One of the other strong favourites for today. Crashed out at the World Championships last year whilst in the lead group with the guys that did contend the win in the end, so it is a little bit of a surprise to see him in trouble at this early point in the race.
Oh, 86.2 to go. There's an awful lot of riding still to be done, and he does not look in the best of shape, which is a real shame. Alongside him is Marco Pinotti as well, also starting today as one of those that might offer up something, at least of a bid for a podium. And there we are. You have this these 5 riders: Van Avermaet, Jan Bekelands, quality most certainly, but being chased down quite rightly by Saxo Tinkoff, and indeed Nicolas Roche is there, the big powerhouse. Alberto Contador, Rafa Majka and Nicolas Roche starting off as their main driving force today. Nicolas Roche, you know, it wouldn't be a bad call to think that he might have a chance today. Likewise, Daniel Martin, just homing in on the world champion there, Rui Costa, the Portuguese. And yeah, incidentally, the bad blood we were talking about between Valverde and Joaquim Rodriguez was about work rate late on in the World Championships. And Perito, absolutely livid, says he still has trouble talking about it. He's kind of becoming the new Pulidor, really, is Joaquim Rodriguez. Constantly the eternal second. All right, he won this race last year, and it kind of salvaged the disappointment that he carried on all the way back to the Giro when Ejdal won it, of course, and beat him on the final day. Rodriguez just can't seem to take that extra step forward, and it's a real shame. It's great to see him battling on. I don't know how he keeps his heart, to be honest, but he's clearly up for this, if only driven on by anger, I think.
Yeah, and of course he's got a chance to win the overall ranking of the World Tour for the 3rd year running. I believe he has to finish in the top 2 today to overhaul Chris Froome, who, as you mentioned earlier, didn't start this race due to back problems. So he has got that added motivation, and as a friend of mine, Mikel Conde, mentioned on Twitter today, it's the first time that Rodriguez can come second in a race and actually win something as well.
Let's hope for him he maybe takes the extra step forward and does the double, as it were. So that was Rory Sullivan, the Australian, just starting to suffer ever so slightly, just heading out the back door. And likewise, Lamprey, not exactly on fire today. We talked about Damiano Cunego, who was up there in the initial break, or the secondary break, I should say, on the day. Michele Scarponi and Diego Ulizzi carrying, I think, a little bit of a beacon for Italian hopes today. So as we approach the top, just 3 kilometres to go until we crest it, but the most difficult part of this climb is to come, and all the riders, or many of them, out of the saddle, and that tells you perhaps all you need to know. I'm wondering if we'll see much of Tommy Vogler today. He's been quite busy late on in the season. He's looking feisty at the Grand Prix of Wallonia, which involved quite a number of nasty little climbs and ramps as well as they went up into the old ramparts. I thought that Tommy Vogler was going to get it, but he got pipped. He got out-Voglered on the day.
Yeah, he's been on good form recently. I think he won a time trial, which is quite rare for our Thomas Vogler in a recent race in France, and took the overall as well. He was one of the kind of guys with shorter odds at the World Championships, obviously racing for France there, but didn't quite come up with the goods on the day. But in Milan-Turin, I think he was top 10, maybe 8th or 9th just a few days ago. So he's obviously got the form there and the motivation, and it will be interesting to see just what he comes up here later. This 5-man group just about to be caught now by the Saxo Bank Tinkoff Bank-led peloton. Saxo, of course, not sure of their budget next year yet. I believe Bjarne Riis, the manager, is due to announce potentially a new sponsor soon, but it sounds like Contador might have had to take a little bit of a pay cut for next year in order to keep the team running.
A what? Goodness me.
You wouldn't catch me doing that.
Yeah, not that you'd know it in the bar. Anyway, 84 point, just under 85 kilometres to go. Now, here we go. glad that the rain seems to have dissipated. We've had light drizzle though, and that can almost be worse than a full-on rainstorm. We're talking about Daniel Martin. He's had a great year, hasn't he? Liège-Bastogne-Liège, you know, just nailing it on occasion. And he's had some great results in Grand Tours as well, as you know. Can it be his day today? Well, he went aquaplaning as during the World Championships. 70 metres he shot down the road. Said there wasn't a scratch on him, and it was because he was in water, basically. His main problem was he couldn't find his bike. Kind of disappeared and then couldn't relay back on. But it showed that he tried, and so don't count Daniel Martin out of this for Garmin Sharp. No,
this is a race that he absolutely loves. In fact, he finished second a couple of years ago when we had that surprise winner, Oliver Zaug of the, I think it was Radio Shack at the time that he was riding for. And I think since then, or even before then, he fell in love with this race, and it's one that he definitely believes that he can win one day. Whether that's today or not, we'll of course see in 84 kilometres time. But he's full of confidence after his year, of course, winning the Vuelta a Catalunya at the start, his first ever World Tour overall. No, that's wrong actually, I think he won Tour of Poland before, didn't he? But went on to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège, kind of the biggest race along with Lombardy for the climbing riders as a one-day classic. Then that stage of the Tour de France, so he's I mean, he's never been a rider that's lacked confidence, but I think after the year that he's had this year, he's full of confidence right now. He's had a little bit of bad luck towards the end of the season, crashing out of the Vuelta a España, and he then went on to compete at the Tour of Britain, but as you rightly said, also crashing out of the World Championships. Last throw of the dice, really, for Dan Martin here.
Here is our world champion, and the race is on to crest well, and Nicolas Roche is absolutely determined. I'm glad to see that his gander is up, and why not? If you have a decent descent, and because of the road surface, we were saying light drizzle is actually almost worse than full-on rain. Mind you, I'm sure some in the World Championships would probably disagree with that, to be honest. However, it is a greasy, nasty surface, and with the leaves, and you can see them on the side of the road, this is the race of the falling leaves, and it does have an impact. If you get into a little bit of mush or some of those fresh fallen leaves, it makes the job of taking the corners on the descent a very difficult one indeed. It's really ramping up here, Dan.
Yeah, this is the part where it starts to get extremely hard, and with the pace that Saxo Tinkoff have been setting all the way up here, Roche coming back from the breakaway now, as you can see, gritting his teeth and really putting the hammer down. You can see behind the effect it's having, all of the climbers now towards the front. We've got Ivan Basso on the left-hand side of the lime green of Cannondale. The Italian champion, Santa Romita of BMC, is right up there, as is the world champion. But as you look further back, you can see some riders really starting to suffer at this point. I reckon about 30 guys there kind of prizing themselves off the front. It's not a breakaway, of course, it's just the effects of the pace that Saxo Tinkoff is setting.
They raced into this. Saxo Tinkoff knew that they had to be on the front. It was real sort of Dan Lloyd tactics, I've got to tell you. He's a quiet DS these days as well, Sigma Sport and all that. We'll maybe have more on that in a moment. Average race speed, it's been a quick one, just shy of the 40 kilometres per hour. Of course, those speeds being knocked right back right now. Those averages will be out the back door later on. That's Georg Piedler, who was in the early break. I think job done for the day, perhaps. We'll see. They needed to be in a good position because the road pinched together, and when they come to this downhill, if you're a good downhill rider, you could be in a very select group after the run into Nesso. Here we are.
Yeah, we saw the cars going in a different direction to the riders just there. That's because this road is so narrow that they don't allow the team cars to come up behind the riders, having a more of a neutral service on the back of motorbikes. So there is Dan Martin in the turquoise blue of Garmin Sharp on the left-hand side of the road. We can see Quintana there, the first of the Movistar riders. He's leading his teammate Valverde, world champion, just a few riders further back, and I think he's just slipped back very slightly. I think he was a bit further forward just a few moments ago.
Yeah, he looks like
that's an indication of his form today.
Perhaps he's rocking slightly. He doesn't look overly comfortable, but he is staying in the saddle. Don't forget, 27%, Dan. You're never going to look comfortable. There's one coping pace when the gradient gets like that, and it's basically the one that you can manage.
That's it, yeah, and they've all got special gears on for this specific section of today's race. Going down to a lower front gear, probably something like a 36 tooth, and then possibly up to 29 on the back. I didn't get the chance to see exactly what the riders were running this morning, but we won't be on the standard 39.25, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge just exactly what they're dealing with at the moment. If you look at some of the gate posts, or indeed how people are standing on the attitude of the road, you may get some kind of indication, but believe me, this is a proper test. They have relayed it, incidentally, of late, and just dipping down, just trying to see who else amongst the personnel are here. I think Dani Moreno is there. He is for Katusha. That bodes well for him. He did such sterling work for Joaquin Rodriguez. In fact, he went so well in the Vuelta. There was questions as to whether Moreno would be the chosen son, but Rodriguez, of course, found his form. But 83.2 to go, and we're just losing them into the clouds. In around 1,200 metres time, they will crest this down. That's going to be a huge relief. But then again, there's a whole different skill set that's going to have to come to the fore.
Yeah, and these riders this year getting very used to descending in the wet. Of course, we had some terrible conditions all the way through February and the spring. Lan San Remo, of course, having to be temporarily postponed in the middle due to snow. So they've had to cope with some fairly horrific conditions most of the way through the year, including, of course, the World Championships 1 week ago today. And although, as you said, not raining as hard as last year here, the roads are still wet, and that is going to make this descent almost as treacherous as it was 1 year ago.
Look at that, almost like looks like snowy mountains, but in fact it is cloud, and the cloud has a lot of moisture within it. Okay for cooling some tired legs, perhaps. Even Basso today, I wonder. Bid for glory. He's certainly one of those. Well, he's now principal for Cannondale, as Peter Sagan has stepped off the bike. Just clearly not his day today. So just the last 1,000 metres, less than that right now, until they get over the crest, and Nicholas Roche is determined to be in that select group. He's not a bad descender either, Dan.
No, I think he's just finished doing his work on the front of the bunch at the moment. One of his teammates taking over in front of Micah. I'm sure Contador must still be there as well, but by the time they get to the top, it's going to be a pretty strong group we've got at the front. A couple of 82R riders there as well. We can presume that one of those is probably Pozzovivo, the small diminutive climber that has won a stage of the Giro d'Italia and came a surprise third in the time trial at the Tour of Spain behind Cancellara and Tony Martin. One of the biggest surprises of the entire year, I think.
Well, apart from Chris Warner. There they go, 42 years of age. They are absolutely grinding it at the moment. It's not pretty. They're all over the road, and you might see riders just starting to weave a little bit, which means that the safest place to be is out front, because if somebody gets into you and knocks just a little bit of your pace back, it's almost impossible to retrieve it down on these kind of gradients. Yeah,
and of course when you get this sort of gradient, the tendency is to get out the saddle and move forward, and when it's slippery like this, that makes it very easy to have some slippage on the rear wheel. And the last thing you want to do is stop completely on a climb like this. It's not inconceivable to think that we might see a couple of riders walking towards the top here. Probably not in the front group, but I'm sure there's going to be some riders pulling some faces further down and possibly even having to dismount from the bike. 1 kilometre kick up towards the top, which peaks at 754 metres. But Astana on the front at the moment, they're going to really have to change their game plan today, with Vincenzo Nibali, for those of you who just joined us, crashing out a matter of 10 or 15 kilometres to go. He was their outright leader for this race, on very, very good form indeed. Now they're going to have to start working to plan B if they've got one. Is that Quintana up the road?
Yeah, Michael Matthews, incidentally, was the man who's being helped.
Valverde and Quintana have attacked on the descent by the looks of things.
Well, they're more than capable, and you know, a duo from this distance, because of the climbs that they've got and their capability, you never know. It may well just be something glorious that we're witnessing right now, unveiling itself here on Il Lombardia. It's the 107th running of the great race. We're on the descent into Nesso. We had a 4-man breakaway, which became 6 and then was absorbed into 20. They all came together on the main climb of the day, of which there are many, let's not forget. And the Sormiano is where some of them at least, were found out. 27% maximum gradient. Well, they're descending now into Nesso. Once they reach the foot of this descent, they will have around 13 kilometers to prepare themselves for the Gisalo, a series of ramps with some respite within it. And then the torture goes on as we try to complete 242 kilometers. Thankfully, not as wet as the World Championships, but still damp out there. There are so many different elements that are playing a part, not least the fact that we have an amazing start list today. But I've got to tell you that Peter Sagan has stepped off the bike, so has Andy Schleck. Nibali has crashed out, looked like a knee injury, not sure how serious it is, but taken away by ambulance. Enau and Uran really off song. Enau involved in the crash, and Uran really not functioning very well indeed. But out front, some real battlers, including Daniel Martin, I've got to tell you, as well as Valverde, who we've mentioned. Rodriguez is up here, last year's winner. Daniel Moreno as well, Rodriguez's teammate. It bodes well for a fantastic finale to the last race on the World Tour within Europe ahead of Beijing. Now, don't forget Rodriguez, if he finishes second today, because Chris Froome did not start due to back trouble, it means that Rodriguez, if he gets first or second today, will indeed be the World Tour champion. So for him, frankly, I'd love it to happen. Despite my fondness for Chris Froome, Joaquim Rodriguez, the eternal nearly man, although did win the Lombardia last year, and so that may well be power to his elbow on this day. 76.1 to go, and still we stay with them. Santa Romita in the Italian national colours there, just disappearing into the trees. You know, the fascinating thing about this, Dan, is that there are so many different elements, and the elements themselves play a huge role. It's been grisly in Italy, though, for most of the contested events that we've had. The Giro d'Italia was snowstorms and blizzards. We mentioned Milan-San Remo, and now the Lombardia at the end of the year. This is the one where we expected inclement weather. And we've got it, but the other ones, my goodness, Italy's been hurt by the weather.
Of course, the World Championships taking place in Florence just a week ago under floods, effectively. Riders going through inches of water, and I was there that day myself, and it was incredible, really, what the riders had to deal with. 7.5 hours in the saddle as well, and I guess some riders probably having still to recover from that day. If they finished the race, it was particularly arduous for everybody involved, but we have got a lot of the same guys at the front in today's race. We see one of the NetApp Enduro riders struggling to get his rain cape on. Looks like very much over for him today. Benedetti, one of the early six-man breakaways that's went down to 4 and got swept up by a group of 17 or so. And now he's some way off the back. But going to get a little bit of an update now and see where the two Mobistar riders are. I think they're still just slightly up the road, Valverde and Quintana. Yeah, sorry we don't have any splits for you. We'll just wait until the pictures catch them up. Today, highly unlikely to be a sprint finish, as I'm sure you can tell, due to the climbs that we have. Coming so close to the World Championships, kind of well amended, I think you might say, in terms of the calendar. They moved it rather effectively, I guess, towards the Worlds, and not the first time, as you know. However, it means that the firepower of those who are taking part is impressive. These two guys are doing a great job of trying to at least putting the worry on absolutely everybody. Superb. This is Janssen van Rensburg just hooking in on, but out front it's this duo and real quality as well. Quintana and Valverde. Valverde, the man roundly criticised by Joaquim Rodriguez for not putting in enough work to deny Rui Costa. Rui Costa, albeit a teammate, but not for long. No, Rui Costa off to the Italian Lamprey team next year, who have had a good week, really. Ulissi, as I said, their winner at the race at Milan-Turin on Wednesday, and one of the favourites for today. It's Rui Costa signing a 1-year deal. Apparently he was offered a much longer deal by Lamprey, but he wasn't 100% sure whether or not it was going to be the right team for him. So why did he sign for them, you might ask? Well, of course, he's always in the shadows of riders like Quintana and Valverde, and he wants to come out of those shadows. He's won the Tour of Switzerland for 2 years in a row. He won 2 stages of the Tour de France this year, now world champion, and he thoroughly deserves to have his own chance. It'll be interesting to see exactly how things go for him next year when he has the pressure of team leader, because we often see it when the riders do come out of the limelight and get a little bit more pressure. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any more results. Yeah, exactly. It's strange as well to see someone like Nicolas Roche, who stepped off being team principal at AG Tour La Mondiale, and then all of a sudden, once that pressure's gone, he's been riding like a demon, hasn't he? Yeah, he certainly has, yeah. And I think as well, you know, he kind of went the other direction, Nicolas Roche, didn't he? He went from being team leader at AG Tour for years and getting top 15s in a lot of the Grand Tours that he competed in, and many people saying that he should give up on the general classification, focus more on getting stage wins. But coming to Saxo Bank, everyone thought, well, he's going to be riding for Contador, but yeah, might well learn a little bit and get gradually stronger and have his own opportunities on 1 or 2 stages. But in the end, not only has he won his first stage at a Grand Tour this autumn, Vuelta a España, but he also came very high up overall, and things looking good for him in the future. He's improved his time trialling with Bjarne Riis, and yeah, I'm expecting some big things from Nicholas Roach in the future that I wasn't really before this year. But this race kicking off, as you said, down the descent, I thought it was going to come back together and people were going to remain calm down here with the conditions. But two Movistar riders really pressing on, and the gap's bigger now than they were on the climb.
They are, and you can see exactly what they're dealing with. There are so many hairpins. At least the surface is good, and I have to tell you as well, they built the hairpins a bit like a carousel, so they're well banked as well. Riding on, pushing on, and in fact we now have a trio up front with Astana also joining in. 72.4 to go. Careful as you go. You can see the road is still wet. See how dry it is where the trees have actually shielded from some of the drizzle. And Santa Romita has managed to power down this descent. What a superb effort it is by the Italian champion, and he's almost back at Quintana and Valverde, and it may well be a quality quartet. Now, Dan, just what sort of group do they need in terms of manpower to be able to make it all the way, bearing in mind the climbs that still are to come?
I think you need a reasonably, at least 4 or 5 guys working well together. Once it gets and swells up too much, then you start to find people sitting on the back not doing their turns, and that's when the group can really begin to fail and get brought back by groups behind. But just to know exactly who the Astana rider is here at the front. 2 of them have retired from the race. Vincenzo Nibali, the team leader, but also his trusty lieutenant, Paolo Tirolongo, winner of the stage of the Giro d'Italia in last year's event, and they've both retired from the race. So they've got 6 guys left in here. Agnoli, who was part of the kind of breakaway which went just after the midway point of the race and caught the early breakaway, so I can't imagine it's him. That leaves Fabio Aru, one of the promising young Italian riders, Gasparotto, former Italian champion, Gavazzi, Francesco Gavazzi, Simone Ponzi, and Alessandro Vanotti, who's also a domestique, so I'm pretty sure it's not him.
Well, Gavazzi was involved in the earlier breakaway today. Looked reasonably fresh as well. I guess it's how you coped with those dreadful ramps, and of course this descent. And these guys are making a very good fist of it at the moment. Those further back up the mountain, not so. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't think this was that much of a test, Dan. Looking at it, road surface looks good, but just look at these riders. We are all over the mountain at the moment.
Yeah, riders, of course, scrambling to get back onto the group from behind as well. Those that were just slightly distanced over the steep section of the climb near the top. And the question is, how many teams have got enough riders in this group behind to actually start chasing? Got 3 riders here off the front, 2 from Movistar, 1 from Astana. The Movistar riders are Alejandro Valverde, 3rd in last weekend's World Championships race, and Nairo Quintana. Still got to get an ID on the Astana rider at the front, but certainly going to be 3 strong riders up here. And, well, as I said, who's going to do the chasing behind?
Yes, indeed. 70.4 to go it is. And rain capes don't help in our quest at the moment. It's not against the rain, incidentally, at the moment. It's against the cold. Here's your chasing group. Now, it doesn't look like they are going that quickly down here, Dan. And so the road surface must be a little bit more unstable than perhaps it looks.
Yeah, and the rain starting to come down fairly heavily here at the finish line.
Oh, and that's why. Oh, that looks like a great deal of pain as well, I'm afraid. Goodness me. That is Fumo, yeah, it is.
Oh, I hope he hasn't hit that wall.
So do I. Bikes are the wrong attitude as well, and he does not look happy.
That car's stopped as well. Let's hope no riders come swinging around that too quickly.
There's no hurry here either as well to pick him up, and that doesn't bode well. And the ambulance is coming through, and anyone who's still behind them is going to find just a wall of metal to be dealt with. Get clear, for goodness sake, before anybody else comes through. There we are, the motorcycle being told to go away as well and make room. Goodness me, Dan. Well, that's the reason why they are taking this gently. You can't see the rain on the camera because of the way pictures reveal, but believe me, it is wet. And that's why they're giving the road due respect, and that's why the speeds don't look that remarkable. This plays into the hands of those who can cope, the brave and the skillful, and you need both of those qualities, I guess. Oh, look at this. Now, this is Quintana and Valverde. This corner could catch a number out. There's Santa Romita coming in and also giving it a huge amount of respect, almost coming to a standstill. 69.1 to go. and already this mountain has started to take some prisoners. We knew it was going to be technical, but thought the road surface might well bode well, and this doesn't bode well at all, and I'm afraid that is day over for Vermeer. Pace is high, 42 kilometres to go, lone rider up the road. That man happens to be Tommy Vogler. He bridged over to a 5-man escape. We'd had plenty of others that had been neutralised by the chasing pack, but he went straight by them on the climb of the Sormano, and then on the downhill it was amazing. The peloton was strung out, a lot took a tumble. We're looking at one of those right now, and Betancourt calling for something, perhaps sustenance, who knows, shaking out the legs, trying to keep them nice and supple. But it's all about whether Tommy Vogler can make it home today. There is a quality group of around about 30 riders who are chasing him down. It includes the world champion, it includes Perito Rodriguez, it includes Valverde, real talent, along with Danny Moreno, a number of other big names. And so there's been a big shakeout today of what was an already thinning start list today, as Chris Froome decided not to start with back problems. And then the drive for the line has begun, but it's going to be a long. Tommy Vogler out front and doing what he does best, which is just setting his own pace, and to hell with everybody. He went over to that escape group, went straight by them just as they were about to be caught, and decided to hit out with quite a distance to go, over 60 kilometres. Can he make it? That is the big question. Well, he's on this big downhill ramp right now. If he gets to the foot of it, he has to bridge over some flatlands. It's going to be hard. 20 kilometres of proper time trialling to get to the final climb, and then maybe glory. Who knows? It's quite an ask, but I guess if you're going to ask it of anyone, ask it of this man, Tommy Vogler, because the quality bunch that sit just shy of 3 minutes behind him can't decide who's going to do the work. All the work at the moment is being done by Tommy Vogler, and he means business. He certainly does. He's got the grip between his teeth now. 40 k's to go, and he'll be getting constant updates from his team car behind in that race radio. So he'll be, well, if he wasn't motivated before, he will be now. The fact that gap went up so much. I mean, when I saw a minute and a half and then Katusha started chasing on the front, I thought it was going to stabilise at that moment. To go up to almost 3 minutes, he must be on some good form today, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. He's on amazing form. He's had a lot of respite this season due to injury. And you saw what that did for Chris Horner with his victory in the Vuelta Tour of Spain. It seems that a hiatus. Oh, look at this. Look at the trace that his wheels are cutting in the moisture. There's been a lot of rain come down, like a little shower. And so suddenly it's time, if you're going to have a go, to go right now. I just wonder if it's possible for Rodriguez to get up there and do something today. Well, he's had to change bikes by the looks of things, and he hasn't got any riders coming back to help him get back on. The number one on his back as winner of last year's race, he started off on his special red and yellow bike. Now you can see he's on a standard black Focus bike there. So he's obviously had some problems, and that's going to upset the chase as well, because as we saw, Katusha were doing a lot of work on the front, and that was for this man. So if he's off the back, they're going to stop riding on the front, and that's going to play into the hands of Europe Cars' Thomas Vogler. Just to remind you, in fact, we're looking at Trofimov. That was Trofimov.
No, they gave us the wrong graphic, did they?
Yes, they did. That was Trofimov, thank goodness for that. Perito is indeed still up towards the front, which is why he didn't have any assistance. They're still looking after Joaquim Rodriguez. Meanwhile, Tommy Vogler continues to do his work, and he's doing a great job of it. It's not Serge Pals. Let's have a quick look. 10 to go. Oh, goodness me. Well, it has had a cost. It has had a big cost. And there, further back, was the Italian champion, Santa Romita. Look at Dan Martin. He's found something here. He's starting to dig and dig deep. 9.9 to go. This is the last of all the tests we've had today. And let's not forget that Rodriguez goes. He's gone. Thank you very much, he says. Now then, if he could take this, he won it last year. Hugely disappointed by the Worlds. What can Valverde do? His arch rival almost. His fellow countryman trying to get back on. 9.8 to go. Joaquim Rodriguez, can he possibly win the World Tour by winning this for the second time in a row? Well, he's opened up a 20-metre gap very, very quickly on this chase group behind. We've got Rafael Maika, the Saxo Bank rider there. Dan Martin's there as well. Valverde
Some very, very good riders, but none of them able to keep up with this Spaniard. Wow, what a ride.
Absolutely amazing. Perito, hugely disappointed, handed out some firebrand comments to fellow countrymen and said they weren't doing enough work. I had to do too much myself. He's not going to let this one go. He wears number 1. He is the defending champion, don't forget, of Il Lombardia. Can he do something magnificent? There's Philippe Gilbert at the moment being found out on the final climb, is he? 9.6. Now watch the descent. It'll be heartbreak for some, glory for others.
Yeah, they're going to have around about 6 or 7 kilometres of descending, and then the final 2.8 kilometres is flat. But let's get over this climb first, because they've still got around about 150 metres, or Rodriguez at least has got 150 metres before he goes over the top, and he'll want to get as much of an advantage as possible so that he can repeat exactly what he did last year in exactly the same manner.
That's a Puma suffering. Philippe Gilbert rocking and rolling. This man, though, well, it's all rock and roll out front. 9.5 to go. He's reached the peak right now. So he is the first to get some respite, and Philippe Gilbert is struggling at the moment, but he has got a hell of a kick on him. Don't forget, this is a man who's beaten the great Edvald Boasson-Hagen in a sprint. If Gilbert can be in the frame late on, do not count out the great Belgian. And Dan Martin picks it up, finds some pace, knows that he can drive this home. Will he do what he did in the Liège-Bastogne-Liège? We're past the 6 hours mark, don't forget, today.
Yeah, 6 hours in the saddle under some harsh weather conditions and some brutal climbs as well. This trio behind got 3 riders: Dan Martin, Garmin Sharp, Alejandro Valverde, bronze medalist this time last week at the Florence Worlds. And we also got Rafael Majka, who is doing a fantastic ride. Long time wearer of the white jersey as best young rider at this year's Giro. A very strong trio there, and it's quite a good sized group to have when you're chasing a rider, because everybody should do their work equally.
Well, they certainly will. It's a question of who's got what towards the end. Now, if this trio can make it, well, they know about Dan Martin these days, so I'm not sure how long he can go, because he'd prefer to take a long one, I guess. 8.6 to go. Perito is out front. Now, he's on the downhill section. It doesn't look like one at the moment because he's on a little ramp, but it gets quicker and quicker and quicker, and then suddenly, bang, flat at the end, and these guys are on full chase.
Yeah, they're going to try and descend as quickly as possible, because they can't afford to let this gap get any bigger. We haven't got any time gaps on the screen yet, but to me it seemed like roughly 12 or 13 seconds at the last point that I managed to time. They're on the most technical part of the descent at the moment. It gets quite straight for a number of kilometres. After that, there's a couple of small curves, and then they hit the lake with around about 5 k's to go, still descending. But here's the moment that Rodriguez went.
That's when the bomb went off. Rodriguez decides to put the hurt on, and boy, was it the right moment, it seems. Carrying a lot of adrenaline, a lot of anger, and a lot of pace as well on this final descent. Now, let's just remind you of the final run into home. Dan, it's very, very technical as they come into town, and in fact, the last 300 metres are a nightmare.
Yeah, they're just coming towards a slightly straighter stretch of road where if they've got anything left in it, now let's try and time this now. I've got an overhead shot. That looks to be increasing, if anything, to me. Must be coming up towards 20 seconds, I'd imagine, from Rodriguez back to that chasing 3.
Back to the finish line in a moment, but Rodriguez did this exactly last year, don't forget. A man who said he had mapped out today, and he had belief. And not only that, he had anger and just about everything else. And of course, he's got a reason. If he finishes 1 or 2 today, he will have won the World Tour, finishing at top of the rankings. That is something special, and you know what? It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. A man they're starting to talk about as an eternal second. Well, he wasn't last year here, was he? Oh, look at this, and there's Tommy Vogler. Job done for him, and bravo to him as well. 6.6 kilometres to go. Wow, 8 seconds it is. Is it enough?
I think 8 seconds is a gap where the trio behind will really be believing in their chances of getting back towards the front of this race and having a chance of victory. And as I said, the perfect size group. Nobody's going to be slacking off and missing their turns. Although, to be honest, at the moment, it's technical enough. The gaps are opening up between the riders. And as Valverde's got somewhat of a gap over Dan Martin and Rafael Majka at the moment, has he got Rodriguez in his sights? Let's go up Yeah, not too far off. That gap is coming down slightly. We've got a very, very close finish on our hands here today.
Let's talk about this this final run into town, Dan, and those twists and turns that we've got to deal with.
Yeah, 5.9 Ks to go, as you can see on your screen. Now, gone up to 11 seconds according to our GPS. Once they get to around about 4.6 Ks to go, they'll take a left-hand turn. And at that point, the road gets very much straighter, very much less technical. And it's with 2.8 Ks to go that they reach the flatter section that comes in towards the finish here in Lecco.
So they're downhill until 2.8 to go. Now don't forget the nasty turns right at the very end. The Flamme Rouge, you have, beyond that you have a very, very testy right-hander, and then there is a left-right flick in the last 300 meters. So if they're cat and mousing, there could be some, well, there will be some broken hearts, I can tell you that much. 5.2 to go. Wow, what a finale, and what a possibility as well for Joaquim Rodriguez.
Yeah, great chance at this point in time of defending his title as winner of this race, and that gap to me looks around 12 or 13 seconds now. He is a great descender. We saw that last week at the World Championships, where he was so bitterly disappointed because on 2 occasions he left Vincenzo Nibali, who's a great descender himself, left him for dust. So if there wasn't any dust, it's such a rainy day on the descent, and so he's trying to maximise his advantage over these 3 riders before they come onto that straighter section of road. At the moment, they're not going to be able to work well together because there's gaps appearing all over the place.
Yeah, gaps because of the pace and those who are happier descending. That's Philippe Gilbert. We're just running through those further down the order with 4.4 kilometres to go. Gilbert beats the motorcycle into the corner. It's wet, it's grizzly. Somebody's going to get mauled out there, and I've got a fear that it might be Joaquim Rodriguez, the man who might do it we're looking at right now.
Dan Martin, not a bad distance. Oh, it's close, isn't it? This is going to be a drag strip race all the way to the line at this rate.
It is. Dan Martin checks over his shoulder just to see how far a gap he's got, and the answer is not much of one at all. Valverde had a strip torn off him by Joaquim Rodriguez, who criticised him for not doing enough work in the World Championships to nullify Rui Costa, don't forget, as the champion. Teammate, of course, albeit not for much longer, of Valverde in Movistar. But anyway, it was very much Rodriguez who said, you lost it for both of us at the time, the World Championship. And it's Rodriguez who's out front at the moment, and nearest man to him is Valverde, that man he's been criticising him. 3.2 to go. I'm starting to believe that this could be our winning move by Joaquim Rodriguez. Into town he comes. 3 to go now.
And he's just coming onto the flat section, which will lead him all the way to the finish line now. The descent is finished for Joaquim Rodriguez, and in a few seconds' time it will be for this chasing trio behind as well. And they can't afford to look at each other at all if they want to try and catch up with this Katusha rider at the front. They need to work extremely well together, be determined, fight for first place rather than second, because this man's got his head down. He's not looking behind him. He knows that he's set his stall out for today's race in exactly the same way that he did this time last year. This is his effort, and he's going to try and continue to keep this all the way to the line.
2.4 kilometres to go, no more climbs, no more descents. But will it be joy or will it be disaster for Rodriguez? Here is Valverde. They have been battling each other, they've been battling the elements, they are now battling it home. Valverde, can he possibly close the gap? Underneath the motorway bridge he goes and heads into town. Rodriguez gets his head down and tries to drive for the line. Dan Martin is still close at hand, don't forget. 2 to go, can he make it?
I think he's got a great chance at this point. It would be good if we had some time gaps on the screen so we could keep you updated as to exactly the distance between the front riders, but I think the fact that he hasn't, well, I was just about to say he hasn't looked around yet, but he has had a quick glimpse. I wonder if he could see Valverde in the distance.
Well, heading for the Flamme Rouge, is it going to be Joaquim Rodriguez? He just comes there, and there is the long shot for you. Where is Valverde? Oh, it's a long, long way back. It's a country mile. He's still round the bend, almost literally. And there, behind him, a recovering Dan Martin, close at the wall, and it looks like Valverde's running out of steam here.
Yeah, that gap to me looked like it was close to 20 seconds than 10. I think the question now, starting to look more like who's going to come second in this race, because with 1.4 kilometres to go, coming up to the 1,300 metre sign, this looks very much like a double for Rodriguez.
It does, and what a joy it will be for him. He's going to win the World Tour this way.
Yeah, he will. I think that's probably the last thing on his mind right now as he comes towards this Flamme Rouge, the red kite, which signifies that he's only got 1 kilometre to go in this race, and to me it looks like he's got this in the bag.
Joaquim Rodriguez in his pomp. Now, he just has to keep his head down. He's been on the team radio. It's not something that he wants the gaps. Are they probably telling him, we've absolutely no idea, just keep doing exactly what you're doing right now. Over the bridge he comes. He looks behind yet again, and he knows he's got the space to enjoy this victory. 800 metres only, and he can take all this nice technical route, nasty technical route I should say, in a very nice fashion. There it is, the little flick-flack, and suddenly this is going to be at peace. This is going to be a man who believes. 500 metres to go, and you're looking at the winner of the World Tour. No Chris Froome here, but we have got last year's winner, and you know something? He has done it again. Round he comes, the final couple of ends. There's the left-hander and the right, and it was the old 1-2, wasn't it, by Joaquim Rodriguez. Perito, a man named after a little cigar. He's going to be celebrating tonight. Oh, and there he is. He flies home, and he flies to the top of the World Tour rankings. He will not be beaten. This is the man who's going to finish top of the standings, and he does the double here at Lombardia. What a performance that was. Valverde comes into sight. It's going to be Valverde as our runner-up on the day. Well, the battle rages on just behind for that podium spot, and Dan Martin, I'm afraid, is going to lose out on that one. Valverde will hit the line, second on the day. He knows that he has done a proper job. Goodness me. And it looks like chain lost as well for Dan Martin. And it was indeed. He restrings that. 4th place for Daniel Martin, who's had a fantastic season so far. Still can't change gears, and I think he might well actually be beaten at the line. 5th place. Oh, he just cruises in. Just gets there, does he? Not sure. We'll have to get a photo on that for you in a few moments' time. And here come the pack. It's minor places. It's the last, don't forget, of the UCI World Tour events on this. Whoa, we got a faller straight across the line as well. Oh, dearie me, careering straight into the photographers. Oh, goodness me. It shows you must not grab at this at all. More riders coming in. Well, it shows the fatigue, more than 6 hours in the saddle. But we have our winner, and it's Perito, the World Tour winner. On his own, a solo victory. Well, it's about minor places right now. Daniel Lloyd has gone down. He's going to have a word with Joaquim Rodriguez. All credit to him. That's a Puma who did such a good job out there. And here is the man. He's smiling again. Oh, who says he's an eternal second? This man has doubled the Lombardia. And let's not forget, run up in the world. He could well, this man, be destined for greater things next year from an amazing peak, let's not forget. And one thing we must remember is that he is now top of the World Tour rankings and cannot be caught. He had to finish in the top 2 today. Well, he only won it. In 6th place. Joaquim Rodriguez. Well, all the pressure, all the angst that he carried over from the World Championships dissipates. Alejandro Valverde, the man on the end of a lot of criticism from Rodriguez for what he believed not doing enough to try and win the world title. What a day it has been. And here is our winner. Dan Lloyd has him, and he's just going to get a brief clean-up, I think. Fabulous.
Joaquim, amazing victory 2 times in a row. You must be very pleased today.
Oh, sinceramente espectacular. Otro Lombardía.
This Lombardia race, it's a huge race for me. A great monument.
Tenía muchísimas ganas de volver a ganar y sobre todo de esta forma.
Well, so disappointed within the worlds, and then just, but in the final, it's all come good for him. Absolutely it has, and of course to win the World Tour, as he said. Well, there you are. He finishes top of the rankings. Chris Froome was the only man who could have denied him, and Chris Froome not taking part due to a back injury. Oh. Purito. Joaquim Rodriguez takes it ahead of Alejandro Valverde. Rafa Maica crossing line in third. Still don't know whether Dan Martin managed fourth place or whether it was to be fifth in the end. What a hard day. Designed to be a huge test. And there we are in the wet and destined for the photographers. Taking it almost gently, Domenico Pozzovivo. This the moment that Rodriguez went for it, and after a brave push by Tommy Vogler was neutralized just ahead of the final climb. On that last peak, it was Rodriguez that went for it, putting the disappointment of the worlds behind him and taking the World Tour title, and indeed doubling on the Lombardia.
The winning time was 6 hours, 10 minutes and 18 seconds. That is 25 minutes faster than Rodriguez covered the course last year.
Well, there we are. We're just hearing that the 6 hours and 10 minutes today and 18 seconds, 25 minutes quicker than last year. Dan Martin did get fourth, but Gasparotto went close, didn't he? It was Moreno that led home the rest, with Peter Seri, Pelizzotti, Santoromita and Jasink. There's your top 10 on what has been a thrill. Thank you so much for joining us. From myself, Carlton Kirby, and from Dan Lloyd, it's been a great pleasure. What a great day it has been. In the dull grey clouds that have surrounded us, we have a beacon of joy, and there he is. Couldn't be more popular. For this podium, they're used to damp conditions in this part of the world, but nothing could dampen this man. Oh, you know, he is such a nice guy, Joaquim Rodriguez. The way the Giro was denied him a few years ago, well, all credit to Ryder Hurchadel when that happened, but your heart bled for Joaquim Rodriguez. Likewise at the Worlds, heartbroken yet again, but he has heart, and he showed that today, and he has delivered. Valverde, runner-up today, but with his son in hand, heading for the victory podium. It'll be Maica called first, on third place of the trio who make up today. Very good work by the young Pole. Seeing an awful lot more of him in the future. His team believe in him, Poland believe in him, and so do we. Rafa Maica, third place for him. Runner-up, the man who perhaps believed he could have done it. Maybe he just didn't have that extra when it came to the Worlds, and that's the reason why his work rate was deemed by Rodriguez to be lacking. Nonetheless, he's our runner-up today, and I think this might well put some ghost to rest between the pair of them. He gave it a good go. Onto the podium he comes with his boy.
Premiato da Francesca Colombo, consigliere provinciale con delega allo sport. Lecco applaude Alejandro Valverde, Movistar Team.
Valverde then runner up today. Well, our champion in more ways than one. We wait for him.
Ed ora, gentili signore e signori, è il momento della premiazione del vincitore dell'edizione numero 107 del Lombardia. L'applauso di Lecco per Joaquim Purito Rodriguez!
Oh, how good does that feel? Topping the World Tour standings and victorious in Il Lombardia for the second year in a row. Purito, Joaquim Rodriguez.
Per la seconda volta
Confirmation of how we finished today. There are the gaps for you. It was a 17-second winning margin. He gets the flowers, he gets the, the plaudits, he gets the kisses. Chapeau.